Spoilers. My name is Carrie and this is Spines and Spoilers. Today I want to talk about the best books that I read in 2024, but first let's talk about what I am reading and what I am drinking. I am drinking coffee topped with cinnamon whipped cream that my spouse made. That's actually him back there in that picture. It's delicious. He's been making a lot of tres leches for the holidays and stuff like that. And one of the things that he does is make his own whipped cream and adds cinnamon into it. So it's cinnamon whipped cream. It's freaking delicious. Now getting into what I am reading, which is what this video should be about, I'm reading The Whispering Room by Dean Koontz, which is a part of a series. It is the sequel to The Forbidden Door, which I've already read and really enjoyed. I'm not super far into this one. I started reading it about a month or two ago and then just entered the world's deepest reading slump. Partially because of the holidays, I think. But yeah, really enjoyed the first one, starting this one, like it so far. We're gonna have to see. Now, let's get into my favorite books of 2024. I'm going to start with the most recent book that I read, and then just move backwards from there. First on the list is The Haunting of Maddie Clare by Simone St. James. As a rule, I love Simone St. James anyway. I've never read a bad book by her so far. This book did have elements of sexual assault and suicide, which you need to be aware of going in. That being said, I did think that it was a very interesting read. It is about a ghost which hates men. I'm sure you can figure out why, but the ghost hates men, so they have to hire a woman in order to investigate why the ghost is there and how they can get it to leave, because the ghost is harassing the people who live in the house. I really enjoyed this one and liked seeing how Simone St. James handled setting the book in a different time period than the present. Next on the list is You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. Now, I've read 2 books by Geneva Rose so far. The first one really disappointed me, and this one I loved, absolutely loved, so really hit or miss so far. You Shouldn't Have Come Here is about a woman who takes a vacation to an Airbnb. Basically, each year she'll throw a dart at a board, and whatever location it lands on, that's where she goes, even if it's in the middle of nowhere, which in this case it is. And she starts to suspect that there is more to the person running the place than it seems. It's one of those stories, and it has such a fun ending. I really enjoyed what they did with it, honestly. And I'm interested to see what else Geneva Rose will do in the future. The next book is Celestial Monsters by Aiden Thomas. Love Aiden Thomas. This was a 5-star book. This was the sequel to the Sunbearer Trials, which was already very good, but this was the stronger in the duology. I think that they're planning on stopping it too. But yeah, really enjoyed it. It's very apocalyptic, but in a fun way. I would say that it kind of leans YA, but not in a way that interferes with the story at all. If you love mythical creatures and stuff like that, absolutely check this one out. It's super fun. I'm actually going to lump the next 2 in together. It's In Charm's Way and Rise and Divine by Lena Harper. They are both part of the Witches of Thistle Grove series. I don't know how she's putting out these books so quickly in consistency, maybe because they're part of the same universe, but I love all of them. There are erotic elements, but the books themselves are not erotica. I wouldn't even describe them as strictly romance. They're very fantasy, supernatural driven. There are a lot of mysteries entailed. There's always a problem which is trying to be solved. Witches. But yeah, if you like magic that has consequences, if you like queer fantasy and romance fiction, I suggest giving it a go. I can't do it justice. I absolutely love this series more than I ever thought that I would. And yeah, if I have to suggest a series to read to people who are into this kind of genre, it would be this one. I'm going to try and slow down my words. I'm sorry that I'm so bad about just rattling things off. I've had so much coffee today. Anyway, the next book was The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. It is about a scullery maid who figures out that she has magic powers, and the people that she works for basically want to exploit her and use her to gain favor. She ends up in a competition, which I always love. I love a good fictional competition. This book is very like dark fantasy romance. There are elements of erotica, but again, that's not like the overwhelming theme. I'm not super into a lot of like romance and sex in books anyway, so It's not an overwhelming factor in this book. If that is something that you enjoy, you'll probably still enjoy it. If it's something that you don't enjoy, then it's easily skippable. The romance itself is lovely though, in a very star-crossed lovers kind of way. The next book on the list is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. No surprise there. I believe she's on this list twice because I just love her and I love her books. Fantasy, little less than a horror, but this one kind of has horror and fantasy elements. Basically, a young girl is being controlled by her mother through magic, and the mother is trying to use her. It's very similar to The Familiar in that way, but just from a different perspective. But her mother is trying to use her in order to get in with some form of royalty, even if it's like on the lower tier of royalty. She just wants to get in with someone and have a life of luxury. She wants to fool people into thinking that she is this amazing person who's worth keeping around, and she's not. She's a deplorable human being. But yeah, she basically just wants to use her daughter as a character witness, and is controlling her through magic, like a puppet. It's kind of horrifying. Really good though. I loved a lot of the elements that she included. The next book is The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is a spin-off of the Inheritance games. Now, I read another book this year that is a spin-off of that same series called The Brothers Hawthorne, but I didn't include it on this list because I liked The Grandest Game more than The Brothers Hawthorne. I was genuinely annoyed when Jennifer Lynn Barnes left it on a cliffhanger. Basically, the characters from the original trilogy decide that they are going to have a set of games, though. Very intricate games that are hard to solve. Puzzles would probably be a more acceptable term in this situation. But yeah, there's that. There is the tournament aspect of it, but there's also just a lot going on behind the scenes, and I thought it was really interesting. I liked it more than The Brothers Hawthorne, even though that one was pretty good too. This next book was probably my favorite of the year. It's The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones. Love Stephen Graham Jones. This is part of the My Heart is a Chainsaw series. Jade is like one of my favorite protagonists. I'm not gonna lie, I find her so relatable. I'm pretty sure that she's on the spectrum. I think she even mentions that at one point. And I just find her so delightful and relatable. The books themselves are horror, so I don't know if I would necessarily describe them as delightful, especially since there's a lot of gore. Just a trigger warning, there's a lot of gore, and there is some animal cruelty. And I usually have kind of a zero tolerance policy when it comes to that. I have very low tolerance for animal cruelty, but I can accept it in this case because I just love the books so much. The next book, it kind of pains me to put it on this list, to be honest, because it's by Stuart Turton, and he royally pissed me off with the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This one is The Last Murder at the End of the World, and I really liked this book. It dragged it at a couple of places, but I just thought it was really good. It was sci-fi, and I think it's gonna end up being a modern classic. I really do. It's basically set in a dystopian world where murder just isn't a thing anymore. Like, it just doesn't happen anymore, to the extent where people just don't really know what to do in that scenario. But one of the people has been studying true crime, essentially, and mysteries and solving murders and stuff like that through literature, and she has to step up and help solve it, and just all of these things are unearthed. I really enjoyed it. This next book is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. I didn't expect it to be anything like what it is, to be perfectly honest. But I thought that it was so creative, and I just loved what she did with the ending. Yeah, it's just not like anything that I've read in modern day. A very basic way to explain it, is that a girl has to go home because her mother is dying. They have an extremely tumultuous relationship for very good reason. Very good reason, which you find out later. But all sorts of eerie things start happening around the house. It starts out, you think it is basically a haunted house story. Like a very basic haunted house story. That is not what it is. And I love it for that. The next book is Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulet. This was basically about a young girl who starts falling for a guy and then finds out that he is part of an investigation into a series of deaths caused by drug overdose. She's asked to participate in this investigation because she is a genius when it comes to stuff like chemistry. Is that a stretch? Absolutely. I can't see many murder investigations just pulling in a random teenager just because she is familiar with the area and the people and is great at chemistry. That's a stretch, but I do like how the rest of it plays out. Next book is Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. I always hear this described as like conversion therapy or conversion therapy camp gone wrong, but let's go ahead and face it, that's already a horror story in itself. The very concept of conversion therapy, if you are not familiar with it and the effects that it has, that is horrific enough on its own, and also the reason that I don't support Chick-fil-A, and neither should you, because they fund conversion therapy. But yeah, off my soapbox now. It's more about a young girl's struggle with her own sexuality and her both inner and outer demons. There is some Hellraiser imagery. This book is so interesting and fun and did not take any of the turns that I was expecting it to. And I loved it. I love Chuck Tingle's horror so much. He's just such a creative mind. I love him. This next book is One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. Yes, I am putting a Ruth Ware book on my favorite books of 2024 list. Fight Me. This book circulates around a couple who gets recruited to a reality TV show. Things seem really off as soon as they get on the boat to go to this secluded island where they're going to be living, and they meet the other couples, and soon everything kind of gets turned on its head whenever a horrible storm comes through, knocks out the power. There's resources. All of the people who were associated with the crew, you know, who were running things, are either gone or dead. Things start getting really tense and tumultuous from that point on. People start dying, and there's an unreliable narrator. I'm sorry, I don't understand why this book is getting as much shit as it is. Like, Ruth Ware is very hit or miss, and this one is a hit, in my opinion. The next book is Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. It is beautifully written. One of the most beautifully written books that I have ever read. Sorry, I had to stop because I was literally tearing up just from talking about this, which is part of why I can't ever talk about this book at length. It is beautifully written, but it is heartbreaking and horrifying. It is about a young girl's struggle with slavery, ancestry, religion, and a journey of self-discovery, and this just absolutely horrific way that she shouldn't have to go through. It is not light or fun or something that you should read whenever you're in a fragile state of mind, but it is poignant, and it is absolutely literature that people should take in if they can. Some books exist just to exist or to entertain, and this is not one of those books. It exists to say something. Anyway, let's go to the opposite end of that spectrum with Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Yes, I put Riley Sager on the same list as Jesmyn Ward. Again, fight me. I need the light stuff to be able to get through stuff like Let Us Descend. Middle of the Night actually was not as light as some of his other books. It wasn't as ridiculous, but I did find it enjoyable to read, and in some places kind of fascinating. It's another one of those where it gets a lot of shit, but I don't understand it. He is a good author for if you like kind of silly thrillers that don't always make a lot of sense. He always makes it out to be like that there's something supernatural, and often there's not. And it's just fun to see what he does with that concept. This next book is another beautiful heartbreaker. It's Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. It is part of the Tales of the Cafe series. All of these books are absolutely heartbreaking. They're beautiful. Not in the same way as Let Us Descend, let's get that straight. They're lovely. And sometimes they are cozy, but they're also heartbreaking. The next book is actually a sequel. It is The Hunting Moon by Susan Dennard. It's another situation where I actually like the sequel better than the first book. It is the sequel to The Lumineers. I really enjoyed The Lumineers, but this one is better. It's basically YA supernatural fantasy with some mystery mixed in. The main character is trying to clear her father's name. I don't necessarily have a lot to say about these books, but if you like mythical creatures and stuff like that, this is definitely one of those that you need to read. I absolutely love books like that. Like, you just have to have a lot of mythical creatures, and I'm there. I'm absolutely there. I think they're delightful. This one's pretty dark, but it's also pretty good. It has elements of romance, but that's not... It doesn't take up the entire story. It's a subplot at best. I just spilled coffee on myself, so that's cool and fine. This next book is also by Chuck Tingle. It's Bury Your Gaze. This is about a screenwriter who does primarily horror and has decided that he is going to refuse to participate in the trope of bury your gaze anymore. The studio freaks out and really weird stuff starts to happen. Basically, creatures from his story start to pop up in real life, and it's just deliciously unsettling, and I really enjoyed it. Chuck Tingle just has such a way with words and so many creative ideas. Definitely... Okay, so the two that I've mentioned, they're the only horror books I think that he has written. The other stuff is just wild erotica, which I haven't delved into. My friend Pierce is very into that stuff, but it's like sex with robots and T-Rexes and just absolutely ludicrous stuff. He's hilarious. But yeah, this is extremely different from that. Even if you do like that stuff, though, you should check it out anyway! Even though I think there's zero sex in either of these books! The next book is Diabola by Jennifer Thorne. This book is about a woman who goes on vacation with her family. She is the black sheep of the family, but also somehow the mediator, so she gets treated like crap, and yet is always in the middle, kind of holding everyone together. They vacation at a villa in Italy, and quickly discover that the place that their vacation is haunted, or at least she discovers that because everyone else is in complete denial about it. Unfortunately, the ghost ends up following her home and she has to find a way to get rid of it. I really liked the main character in particular. She's probably one of my new favorite protagonists because she very much gives off that vibe of I'm not stuck in here with you, you are stuck in here with me, you're gonna fucking deal with it. And I think it's great. This next book is another one of my absolute favorites. It's Never Whistle at Night. It is by various indigenous authors and is a horror anthology, pretty much all of which hit in some way or another. I wouldn't say any of them are less than good, at the very least. Definitely recommend looking into it because the great thing about anthologies is like it's made up of short stories. They're bite-sized. You can just pick it apart bit by bit and it's fine. If you like horror, go read it. I guarantee that you will find something that you enjoy. Also, what is going on with my lighting? What is happening here? Next book is Page Boy by Elliot Page. I love Elliot Page. I loved reading about his backstory, essentially, about his life and what led him to be the person that he is today. There's not much more to say about it than that. This next book is another autobiography. It's Only Say Nice Things by Crystal Hefner. It is slightly horrifying, and if you don't hate Hugh Hefner yet, you will after you read this book. I think it is a valuable book that everyone needs to read, especially anyone who is still holding on to fond memories of Hugh Hefner and is under any delusions of what the Playboy Mansion really is. This next book is If We Were Villains by Emma Rio. As I've mentioned in the past, this one holds a special place in my heart because it is about theater kids, and I was a theater kid. Granted, they're at a school which is specifically for people who are in theater and the arts and stuff like that, which I would have absolutely loved. I think I could have gone to something like that, but oh well. The past is in the past. But it is a murder mystery. The main characters are theater kids. One of the people in the cast ends up murdered. It comes off as a whodunit type of story, but it ends up being more than that, and I really enjoyed it. There are 2 books left on this list. The 23rd book on it is 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. I feel like Liane Moriarty is hit or miss. She's not always an author that I enjoy, but sometimes she is. I saw this book everywhere. It had so much hype, the show and the book. And it didn't end up disappointing. I really loved the villain and just how truly unhinged she was. It's basically about a group of people, though, who go to stay in this resort that is supposed to help you in all these different ways. It makes all these promises. And then it turns out that it's kind of extreme. Not entirely what I expected, but I loved it all the same. My 24th and last book on this list is What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. Of course I'm ending it with a T. Kingfisher. Who do you think I am? This is a sequel to What Moves the Dead, which feels odd to me. I don't feel like it should have been a sequel, maybe in the same universe, but I think it could have stood just being a standalone book. Around different characters. That being said, it's not bad at all. I absolutely loved it. It is, of course, in my favorite books of the year, but even among those, it would be in my top 10. Basically, the main character from the first book finds that they are having horrible nightmares, and then whenever they wake up, they're actually starting to get physically ill. And they're trying to figure out exactly what is going on and how they can stop it. And I just thought that this was done in such an interesting and fun way. I never read T. Kingfisher and come away thinking, well, that was predictable. It's never predictable. It's always interesting. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's ridiculous, and that's okay. But I always love her work. I always do. This was no exception. It's probably going at the top of my list for her books in general. That being said, that's the end of the list of my favorite books for 2024. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it way more than you know. I hope that you guys are out there having a happy new year. I think that's around when this is going to be coming out. But have a happy 2025. I know that there's about to be some shit going down. Let's just go ahead and accept that now. And try to make the best of 2025 that we can. Good luck, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Feel free to like and share and subscribe, but what is most important, and what I'm going to hold you to for the rest of the year, is to remember to love yourself. That needs to be your New Year resolution for 2025, okay? Whether it was on there or not, you need to add it, okay? Remember to love yourself. Please.